me that I'm losing it. Tell 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 me that I'm losing it. Lifeline right before our face. Lose a lifeline right before we make it. You ain't gotta choose the time of day. Living legend, wake me up when I'm famous. Lifeline right before our face. Lose a lifeline right before we make it. You ain't gotta choose the time of day. Living legend, wake me up when I'm famous. It's hard not to channel it. They all want to appeal, but I doubt that they can handle it. Tell me what is real. Why can't they just answer it? Now tell me what is real. Why can't they just answer it? Lifeline right before our face. Lose a lifeline right before we make it. You ain't gotta choose the time of day. Living legend, wake me up when I'm famous. Lifeline right before our face. Lose a lifeline right before we make it. You ain't gotta choose the time of day. Living legend, wake me up when I'm famous. I'm so sold on you. I'm so sold on you. She in love with love, no wonder I look over you. No wonder, even when you over me. What am I supposed to do? Baby, you don't know what I hope for. The word got control on you. The word got control on me. I'm so sold on you. She in love with love, no wonder I look over you. No wonder, even when you over me. What am I supposed to do? Baby, you don't know what I hope for. The word got control on you. The word got control on me. I'm so sold on you. No promise, no doubt. You so who I. No promise, no doubt. No promise, no doubt. No promise, no doubt. You so who I. No promise, no doubt. No promise, no doubt. I'm so sold on you. She in love with love, no wonder. I look over you, no wonder. Even when you over me, what am I supposed to do? Baby, you don't know what I hope for. The word got control on you. The word got control on me. I'm so sold on you. She in love with love, no wonder. I look over you, no wonder. Even when you over me, what am I supposed to do? Baby, you don't know what I hope for. The word got control on you. The word got control on me.
You not like them other things, eh? Them gal difference. But me pay no difference. Me pay them gal them no mind. You made boy them sell him soul, cause it's soul. What glitters ain't gold. But your soul is gold, so it glitters. Now go and let me hold.
Good morning. Clearly, envelopes are not my friend today. My name is Samantha White. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm the volunteer host for today. I am really glad that we can gather together today in the spirit of shared values and community. Whether you're a longtime member, a first-time visitor, or joining on our live stream, we are glad that you're here. So that our time together is not interrupted, please take a moment to silence your devices or put them on Do Not Disturb. I appreciate each of you and your consideration for our community and our guests today. Let's get started. We are really excited to welcome back King Q as our musical guest for the day. King Q is known for his powerful and uplifting music, with a deep passion for raising awareness about oppression. His sound reflects both resilience and hope. As a storyteller, King Q blends raw emotion with insightful narratives to connect with listeners on a personal level. His music aims to inspire and empower, offering a positive escape in a world often filled with struggle. Dedicated to making a difference, he continues to push boundaries and create art that resonates with those seeking both meaning and motivation. King Q shared some of his original music as we were in an auditorium today. It was amazing. And he will share 3 originals throughout the platform today. His first is Changes. Please welcome King Q.
I'll be forgetting, sometimes like I come on this stage and I'm like, wait, hold on, this is family in here, there's no reason to be nervous. I don't know why I'm so nervous up here, but hopefully by the second song I can shake that off, man. So how y'all doing? Y'all doing okay? Doing good? Good. All right, DJ, play that. It's also one of my favorite songs right here. Different shades, different faces. Halloween's got a name, but it ain't no label. Let them fly, let them ricochet. Just listen to this, just vibe to it just for a second, y'all. Different shades, different faces. Halloween's got a name, but it ain't no label. Let them fly, let them ricochet. Mic check 1, 2. Let them fly, let them ricochet. Yeah. I'll riot now, How many of the time to hold what you feeling? Our people are dying now. How many you think are grieving this evening? I'm ready to find the count. So many been hiding the fact that we rotted inside. I can spy them out. I'm making this promise now. I'm refining the streets, green light, ain't no stopping for me. Open wide, pour a whole bottle of Visine so they finally see what I mean when I say I'ma be free. I can't breathe, let me find no relief. Hands up, drop the Skittles and tea. Point blank range, mission complete like. The cries of the souls of the people that died for no reason, for innocence. The cries of the souls of the people that are living in poverty, living in depression, oppression.
Different shades,
All different shades.
Halloween's got a name, but it ain't no label. Let them fly, let them ricochet. Let them fly, let them ricochet. Different shades, different faces. Halloween's got a name, but it ain't no label. Let them fly, let them ricochet.
My check.
Let them fly,
1, 2.
let them ricochet.
Let's go. This shit is sick. I carry a hammer and nail, cause damn it, I'm built for this. I live for this. Hollows go any direction, it's really a hit or miss. But the difference is, how many really deserve it? Let's number who innocent, but in a sense, guess we just paying the price for different existence. I'm listening. Streets really calling out here from afar. Maybe it's telling me we've been at war. Lately too happy the less that you think. For that I can say I've been wanting it more. Pressure been building my back to the wall. Started with peace, but now weapons are drawn. Guess you can call it my brother in arms. Guess you can call it different.
Different faces. Halloween's got a name.
I know we all in here can relate to that, right?
Let them fly, let them ricochet. Let them fly, let them ricochet.
Different shades, it's different faces. Halloween's got a name, but it ain't no label. Let them fly, let them ricochet.
Let them fly, let them ricochet.
I say, let them fly away. You an angel, huh? It's a time of day. I guess we all gotta go. Damn, say something. I said say nothing, huh? You won't say nothing, you won't say nothing, I said, you an angel, huh? Let them fly away, and we all gotta go now. Say some, you won't say nothing, I said say some, can you say some? Let them fly away, oh you an angel, huh? It's a time of day that we all gotta go. Damn, say something. Or you will never say nothing, huh? I said, say something. Lord, please say something. Okay.
That feels really relevant today. Thank you for sharing that with us. Each week, we read the Ethical Education for Youth core values as a way to bring us together and remind us of our shared commitments. I'm the core values reader today, and our core values at the Ethical Society of St. Louis are: every person is important and unique. Every person deserves to be treated fairly and kindly. I can learn from everyone. I am a part of this earth. I cherish it and all the life upon it. I learn from the world around me by using my senses, minds, and feelings. I am a member of the world community, which depends on the cooperation of all people for peace and justice. I can learn from the past to build for the future. I am free to question. I am free to choose what I believe. I accept responsibilities for my choices and actions. I strive to live my values. So the youth education program is available to all children and provides a robust ethical education. We don't seem to have Sikh students with us today, but if there are any in the audience that I can't see, you're welcome to head downstairs for our programming right now. I saw popcorn earlier, so I assumed they were watching a movie. Wasn't certain. It is now time for opening words when we get to learn more about our fellow community members and their interests and passions. This is a time to deepen our connections to one another. Please join me in welcoming Dan Overman.
Good morning. My name is Dan Overman, as Samantha said, and my pronouns are he and him. So, similar to last week, I'm going to start by addressing the elephant in the room. It's a different elephant than last week. And the elephant is, well, how did Dan Overman end up presenting opening words 2 weeks in a row? Well, it's a fluke. Months ago, the Stewardship Task Force booked this Sunday with the assumption that if there were a need to provide a follow-up to last week's messaging, it would be useful to have secured an opportunity to do so this week. As it turned out, last week's presentation went pretty well and covered the issues, so it was decided that there would be little or no benefit for a recap or repetition. Consequently, to avoid the irritation caused by too much message pounding, as NPR is prone to do, there will be nothing today about stewardship, sustainability, and especially about pledging. Instead, today's topic is about one of the core values, learning from others. Along with many in the audience, I've attended dozens of forums, opening words, and platform presentations that provided many insightful lessons. Today, I've chosen 3 examples to share. The first is from Marianne Perkins and was part of her opening words delivered not last week but a year ago. The context was related to her religious transition journey, but the message is universally applicable. Here it is. Prior to establishing your beliefs, scrutinize the data set from which you are making your choices. If you are unquestioningly using just one data set and it contains unchallenged inaccuracies, then your choices are likely to be inaccurate, your beliefs misguided, and the pathway to your truth obscured and much, much more difficult. Don't hesitate to search and apply other data sets, and always, always be skeptical. Kudos to Marianne. The next example is from Joan Walker, and it was part of comments she offered at a forum last year on the topic of effective communication. Perhaps some of you were there and were enriched by her MCI story. MCI is the acronym for Most Charitable Interpretation. Joan explained that she grew up in a household with the MCI policy. When confronted with a snarky or unkind comment or event, if you must respond at all, it was your responsibility to do so with the most charitable interpretation. Now, for those of you who are techies, there's a new phone app named the MCI Index. It rates your response on a scale of 1 to 10 and sends you a notification with the charitable response score. Word has it that some of the users have responded very, well, uncharitably. Now, I just made all that up, but I thought it was entertaining. The third example is from Kate Lovelady, one of our former leaders, and it was presented at a platform several years ago, and the message was, judge behavior, not people. It's okay to judge behavior, especially our own, to access and consistency with alignment with our own core values. And don't judge people. Why? Simply because it's not possible to climb into other people's heads and truly know the full story of their person and their journey. So I hope these brief examples remind all of us to recall and apply pertinent lessons that have enriched our lives. Learning from others is so much more efficient and a great deal less exhausting than personally creating and agonizing over every possible solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciated that little trip down memory lane. If you are a member and would like to share opening words, we will happily get you on the schedule. You can contact Carol Beer or send an email to the platform speakers team. I hope you will take advantage of the opportunity to share of yourself with this community. Let's welcome King Q back to the stage for his second selection, Grounded.
Play that shit. Take the collection of diamond strikes, pull out a couple of matches. Light up the night with a Dutch filled with 2 grams of pain and passion. Inhale every problem I had as I start to observe the ashes, comparing them to my hopes and dreams that I had when I had no action. I'm bad at imagining half of the life I could have if I wasn't so stagnant. They told me to ride that wave, but what if that wave come down and crashing? Then I'll be stuck with a wife and a child, but I can't provide them jack shit. I guess I'm walking on the road to redemption, damn, I'm losing my traction. Silver rain in a hurricane. Silver rain hit my window pane. Different waves, let them hit the same. Take me away, cause I'ma die for you and only you. Like silver rain in a hurricane. Hey, silver rain hit my window pane. Hey, different waves, let them hit the same. Take me away. Look, maybe it's harder to try to explain that life is so simple. Or maybe it's harder to try to explain how to fix all my issues. I'm looking like damn, the older I am, the smaller the window. I'm looking like damn, the shit can go blam and no one to miss you. Shit, a private island, let me isolate my mindset. This shit is eating at me, but I'm kinda hard to digest. Relationships can sink, it got me thinking how I got here. I throw my problems overboard, they wash up in the process like silver rain in a hurricane. A silver rain hit my window pane. A different waves, let them hit the same. Take me away, cause I'ma die for you and only you. Like silver rain in a hurricane. A silver rain hit my window pane. But different waves, let them hit the same. You know what's really crazy about today, right, is I'm not even like a flashy person, bro. None of this shit ever mattered. These shades never mattered. This necklace, I'm gonna tuck that in. I'm not gonna destroy that, but I've been thinking, man, like, I've been trying so hard to get, like, inheritance and stuff like that, thinking money and fame and power and all that shit mattered, but it never really mattered. The only thing that mattered was that silver lining and that silver rain. So I'm gonna just keep on going with hope. I'm gonna keep on going with passion and making sure that I'm just a creative person. None of this shit mattered, I wish to God that I knew who I truly was, but if it wasn't for music, I really wouldn't know who I am in the first place. So again, the song Silver Rain, right? It's you looking up and you see that dark cloud, you see that silver line, and when it starts to rain, it's silver rain. That's really what this song is about, and no matter what, that even in that storm, it's always gonna be hope, and I'm gonna always be a passionate person, I'm gonna always be a hopeful person, and always speak for the people, first and foremost. Thank y'all.
Thank you, King Q. I appreciate your creativity and your hope. It means a lot. Before our main address, we like to take a moment to empty our minds, relax our bodies, and take some mindful, deep breaths. Please join me for 1 minute of mindful breathing. Thank you. Our platform address today features researcher Mark Robert Rank. Mark Rank is the Herbert S. Hadley Professor of Social Welfare at Washington University in St. Louis. He is widely recognized as one of the foremost experts in the country on issues of poverty, inequality, and social justice. He has received numerous awards for his scholarship and books, and his research has been reported in a wide range of national and international media. Please join me in warmly welcoming Mark to the stage.
Thanks so much for that introduction, and it's really a pleasure to be with you this morning and get to share some thoughts and ideas. I actually was fortunate to be here, it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, so it's great to be able to come back and again share some more thoughts and ideas. And given that this is the Ethical Society, what I'd like to talk about is an ethical issue that I've spent some time thinking about. And I'll begin by noting that among some segments of the U.S. population, there's a growing recognition that widespread poverty and inequality amidst extreme levels of plenty and wealth seems basically wrong and unjust. But one of the questions that needs to be asked is why? Why is this situation wrong and unjust? Just because it exists doesn't necessarily mean that it's unfair. So that's a topic that I want to explore with you today. Why poverty and inequality undermine justice in the United States. And what I want to do is briefly take up 3 questions here. So first of all, what does the concept of justice mean within an American context? We often talk about social justice and things like that, but what exactly are we talking about here? Second, what do we know about the extent and depth of poverty and economic inequality in the United States? And third, why do the high levels of poverty and economic inequality that we find in the U.S. undermine the notion of American justice? And I'd argue that answering these 3 questions is really important in terms of providing both an empirical and a moral justification for the concerns and anger that people have been expressing over the past decade regarding rising economic inequality. So let me begin by talking about several aspects of justice that I think are critical in terms of how it's often been interpreted within an American context. And what I'd argue is that there are at least 4 important components that should be considered when we think about justice in the U.S. The first is the idea that there are certain basic rights that all citizens, regardless of where they fall in society, should be entitled to, that a just nation ensures this. Now, some of these fundamental rights include things like voting, trial by jury, freedom of speech, and so on. The Bill of Rights in the Constitution obviously lays out many of these. A society that doesn't guarantee such rights to its citizens is viewed as an unjust society. Only in a few cases might the denial of such rights be justified, such as if someone has committed a serious crime. But other than that, all citizens should be entitled to these rights. If we look back in history, the denial of people's basic rights was the major argument for why the colonies felt that they had the right to declare independence from England. England was denying the colonists their fundamental rights. For example, the notion of taxation without representation. Consequently, the Declaration of Independence argued that because of the denial of certain basic rights, the colonists were justified and had justice on their side in deciding to revolt. The country was therefore created, in a sense, to correct for the injustice that was being done through England's denying the rights of the colonists. And we've seen that this notion of certain inalienable rights belonging to all Americans has continued throughout our history. For example, through various rights movements. The most blatant of rights being denied was, of course, that of slavery, which led to the abolitionist movement. The women's suffrage movement at the turn of the 20th century was premised on correcting the injustice of women being denied the right to vote. Or the civil rights movements in the 1950s and 1960s was premised on the idea that Black Americans were being denied certain basic rights and that this was a blatant violation of the concept of justice. Other rights movements have also largely been built on the idea that certain rights were being denied, and therefore the country was in violation of its sense of justice. So the gay and lesbian rights movement, persons with disabilities movement, the environmental justice movement, and so on. So the protection and enforcement of certain fundamental rights is often viewed as an essential component of American justice, that every citizen should be entitled to the full protection and enjoyment of those rights. After all, the Pledge of Allegiance doesn't end with the words liberty and justice for some, but liberty and justice for all. Okay, so that's the first, I think, component of the sense of justice in the American context. A second component has been the strong emphasis upon the importance of what's known as equality of opportunity, that a just and a fair society provides equality of opportunities to its citizens, that individuals through hard work and effort can achieve success by taking advantage of the opportunities available to them. That certainly is one of the key ideas behind the concept of the American dream. Equality of opportunity basically means that all should be entitled to a fair shot at achieving success in the American dream, and that certain things that enable one to do so, like a good education, should be available to all. The idea is that of a level playing field. Now, what you then do with those opportunities is up to you. Therefore, America has never felt that equality of outcome was just, only equality of opportunity. It's therefore a fair and just society that provides for equality of opportunity amongst all of its citizens. Okay, a third critical component of how justice has been interpreted in America, and I would argue in many other places as well, has been the notion of balance. So for example, when somebody works hard and plays by the rules, we often hope that they'll receive their just rewards. Or when a crime is committed, justice is seen as being served if the criminal is sentenced to a punishment that fits the nature and severity of the crime. On the other hand, if an individual commits a serious crime and is neither apprehended nor punished, the feeling is that an injustice has occurred. So in cases where individuals experience outcomes and consequences that are congruent with their prior actions and behavior, the world is seen as just. Conversely, in situations where individuals experience outcomes and consequences that are incongruent with their prior actions and behavior, the world is seen as unjust. And this concept of balance can be visually seen in the symbol of justice that's found from local courtrooms to the United States Capitol, and that is of Themis or Lady Justice. So here one finds a woman, often blindfolded, holding a measuring scale in one hand and a sword in the other. Now, in this image, justice is being portrayed as impartial and not beholden to special interests, hence the blindfold. The fact that she's holding a scale has a double meaning. They first imply that evidence should be weighed carefully in deciding how justice will be delivered, but they also connote that justice is served by balance. That is, prior actions and future consequences should be in balance and congruent with one another. Furthermore, the sword that's gripped in her other hand represents the strength and authority of justice and acts as a balance to the judgment derived from the scales in the other hand. So a third element of how justice has been interpreted within the American context is that it should reflect this sense of balance. That, for example, an individual's current economic situation should be roughly in balance with their prior actions and behaviors. Okay, the final component of justice that I want to mention is the notion of deservedness. And this idea follows very closely from the notion of balance. Basically, in a just society, what you deserve in life should reflect your prior efforts, actions, and talents. This concept of deservedness has often been applied to the poor. So the criteria has been used over the centuries, particularly since the English Poor Laws of 1601, is to divide the poor into the categories of deserving and undeserving. The deserving poor are individuals that are deemed worthy of our compassion and assistance because they find themselves in poverty through little fault of their own. Consequently, an injustice has occurred. Such persons would include those who have suffered from an unavoidable illness or accident, children, widows, and so on. On the other hand, individuals falling into the undeserving poor category are seen as neither meriting our compassion or our assistance. So such poverty is perceived as being brought about as a result of things like laziness, immorality, bad decision-making, or some other failing, and therefore impoverishment is a just or deserving consequence of prior behavior. And this notion of deservedness is therefore, I think, a fourth component of what I would call this American sense of justice. So I think that these four components that I've been discussing are essential to understanding an American sense of how justice is viewed. And we may disagree with these things, but I think that this is kind of the mainstream view of how social justice is viewed in the United States. So a just society ensures certain basic rights to all, supports the idea of equality of opportunity, strives to make sure that prior actions and behaviors are in balance with current outcomes and consequences, so that in the end, people basically achieve what they deserve in life. Okay, so let me turn to the second topic that I want to discuss, and that is, what do we know about the extent of poverty and economic inequality in this country? I want to first lay out some information about this, and then what I'll discuss is why I believe these conditions undermine the American notion of justice that I've just been talking about. Okay, so what do we know about the extent of poverty in the U.S.? Well, we can think about this question in several different ways. The most common way is to determine how many people experience poverty in a year. So last year, or 2023, the year that we have the latest data on, the U.S. poverty rate was 11.1%, which translated into around 37 million individuals, or about 1 out of 9 Americans were counted as being in poverty. And I should point out that the official measure of poverty is a pretty conservative measure. So last year, for example, for a family of 3, the poverty line was drawn at around $24,000. So if you were a household earning less than that, you'd be counted as being in poverty. If you made more than that, you would not be counted as being in poverty. The other thing I should note is that 45% of those who are counted in poverty last year actually lived below 1/2 of the poverty line. So instead of a family of 3 living below $24,000 a year, that family would be living below an income level of $12,000 a year. That's one way to think about how many folks are in poverty in the United States, how many people fall into poverty in a given year. A second way of thinking about the extent of poverty is what are the lifetime chances of experiencing poverty? And this is a question that I've spent a lot of time and research looking into. It turns out that the odds at some point in your lifetime of experiencing poverty are actually quite high. So my analysis shows that 3/4 of Americans can expect to experience at least 1 year in poverty or near poverty between the ages of 20 and 75. And people often ask me, how can those numbers be so high? But when you consider over a 40 or 50-year period, things happen to people that they didn't anticipate, getting sick, losing a job, a pandemic occurring. And when these things happen, there's a great risk of falling into poverty. Children and folks of color are at a particularly high risk of experiencing poverty. So, for example, one analysis that I worked on showed that 1/2 of all American children will at some point during childhood reside in a household that uses the SNAP or food stamp program. And if you're using food stamps, by definition, you're in poverty. So that's another way of thinking about the risk of poverty in the United States, is what is the lifetime risk? It turns out it's quite high. A third way of thinking about poverty in the U.S. is to ask, how do we compare to other countries? It turns out that the prevalence and depth of poverty in the U.S. is the highest among the Western industrialized nations. So whether we look at poverty within the working age population, for the elderly, single-parent families, or children, the story is basically the same. And that is, the rate of poverty in the U.S. is approximately twice as high as that in most other Western industrialized countries. Okay, what about levels of inequality and income inequality? Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion about this over the last number of years. And the story is, again, if we compare income inequality in the United States to basically all other Western industrialized countries, the US has far and away the highest levels of income inequality. And what you're looking at in terms of income inequality is the spread of income. How far is it from the top to the bottom, and where do people fall in between? If we look at what's happened with income inequality over time, during the past 40 or 50 years, the only group to have increased their piece of the income pie has been the top 20% of the population, and particularly the top 5 and the top 1%. These are where almost all the gains in the US economy have gone over the last 50 years. For the bottom 80% of the population, their economic position has either been static or has actually declined. So for example, if you look at the median earnings of men working full-time since 1973, once you adjust for inflation, those earnings have been essentially flat over a 50-year period. Another way of seeing the increasing skewness in terms of income is in the following way. So there's a very famous economist by the name of Paul Samuelson, and he wrote a really famous introductory economics textbook that had 10 or 11 editions. Well, in the first edition of this introductory textbook in 1948, he observed that if we were to make an income pyramid out of a child's play block, so we build a pyramid out of blocks like that, with each layer representing $1,000 of income, the peak in 1948 would be somewhat higher than the Eiffel Tower, but almost all of us would be within a yard or so of the ground. So if we think about income in that way, the top of the income distribution would have been represented by the top of the Eiffel Tower, but most of us would be within several yards of the ground. By the time of Samuelson's 2001 edition of the textbook, most of us still would be within a yard or so of the ground in terms of our income, but the Eiffel Tower would now have to be replaced by Mount Everest to represent those at the top. And I think that visual image shows you what has happened in terms of income inequality, particularly for those at the top. Or take what's happened with respect to the distance between the average worker's salary and the average CEO's salary. So in 1980, the average CEO of a major corporation earned around 42 times that of the average worker's pay. Today, it's well over 300 times. So again, there's been a tremendous increase in inequality. If we focus on patterns of wealth inequality, then we see an even more skewed picture than income. So today in America, we find that the top 1% of the US population currently own nearly half of the entire financial wealth in the country. Financial wealth being things like stocks, bonds, savings, and so on. The bottom 60% of Americans are in possession of less than 1% of the country's financial wealth. So what all of this data tells us is that the United States has extremely high rates of poverty and economic inequality when compared to other Western industrialized countries and when compared to years in the past. So in the 1950s and 1960s, income and wealth inequality was much less. All right, so given this situation, what I'd like to now argue is that these economic conditions significantly undermine the earlier notion of justice that I was talking about. Again, the four major components of justice that I mentioned were entitlement and protection of rights, equality of opportunity, balance, and deservedness. So let's begin with the entitlement of fundamental rights. With such high levels of poverty and inequality, the basic argument can be made that although everyone may be theoretically entitled to certain legal rights, in reality, the fulfillment of those rights is strongly affected by your economic position. And just to give one example, Derek Bach, who was a long time ago was president of Harvard, wrote a book. And in that book, he says, "Surely there is no other nation where the nature of individual freedom has been elaborated in such detail, or any other society that is so well organized to ensure that essential liberties are defended and preserved. At the same time, freedom in the United States may be more limited by other forces than it is abroad. For example, The government in America often makes less effort than others to make sure that all or most Americans have the means to exercise important rights they formally possess. To choose but one example, it's impressive to grant everyone accused of a serious crime the right to qualified counsel, but the right may not be worth much in practice if the lawyers assigned turned out to have so little time that they can scarcely do more than hastily agree to exchange a guilty plea for a slightly reduced sentence. Yet this is the situation that exists in many jurisdictions of this country, unquote. And we could think of many other situations where poverty and economic inequality undermine people's ability to fully partake in their legal rights and freedoms. Or on the other hand, where having substantial resources allows one to take much greater advantage of those rights. For example, participation in the political process and the ability to affect policymaking. Consequently, the notion that everyone is fully and equally entitled to certain basic rights in reality falls far short because those with lower levels of income are not able to take full advantage of those rights. On the other hand, those at the high end of the income distribution are able to exert considerably more influence through those rights. Consequently, and I would say that we certainly are seeing some blatant examples of this in the current political environment, where not everybody is able to exercise the same influence in terms of using those rights. Okay, let me turn to the second component that I mentioned, and that is the importance of equality of opportunity. That a just society ensures equality of opportunity. And I'd argue that equality of opportunity is significantly skewed with the presence of large economic differences in the population as well as large amounts of poverty. And let's just consider just one example, and that is the example of education. So, public education began in the 19th century as a way of ensuring that all children would have access to this important tool. That this was viewed as an important avenue to provide everyone a means of equality of opportunity. Yet in order to compete effectively for economic opportunities today, both the quality and the quantity of education are critical in terms of getting ahead. And on both counts, poverty and lower income status stunt the educational process. One reason for this is that public education is largely funded through local tax dollars. This is one of the very few countries in which this is the case. So those who grow up in poor households are likely to be living in a lower income area. And those in lower income areas, in turn, are severely limited in the amount of financial resources that they can devote to their school systems, the quality of teachers that they're able to attract, and so on. And this results in a significant reduction in the quality of education that each student receives. And one has only to just St. Louis, you can go to any metropolitan, any area whatsoever and see this process play out. Just compare the facilities and personnel at any inner city public school with those at an affluent suburban school or private school to observe the process I'm describing here. Consequently, children in these different socioeconomic settings have greatly different odds in being able to achieve a quality education that will then allow them to compete or not compete in the labor market. All are American students, yet not all are entitled to a first-rate education. The same process continues in terms of students going on to college and university level. So what this example shows, and there are many others that one could point to as well, is that the American ideal of equality access, of equal access to opportunities, is undermined by the existence of widespread poverty and inequality. The poor and those at the lower end of the income distribution simply do not have the same chances and opportunities that others in society do. And to argue that everyone is starting at roughly the same point and therefore equality of opportunity exists is simply wishful thinking. Let me now turn to the third and fourth criteria of justice that I had mentioned earlier. That is the importance of balance and deservedness between current circumstances and prior behavior. The question then becomes, is poverty and economic destitution deserved and in balance with prior actions? And I'd make the argument that in the vast majority of cases, the answer is no. A very simple way of seeing this is if we just look at the demographic composition of the poverty population. So 31% of the poor are children under the age of 18. And I challenge anyone to make the argument that an 8-year-old child deserves to live in poverty as a result of his or her prior actions. That argument simply cannot be made. An additional 14% of the poor are over the age of 65, a category that we generally feel is deserving of some kind of assistance. A further 17.5% of the poor are between the ages of 18 and 64 and suffer from some type of serious disability. Therefore, just looking at the demographics, we can see that nearly 2/3 of the poverty population fall into categories that most people would argue are not deserving of impoverishment. Now, for the remaining third of the poor, research has shown that much of their poverty is the result of failings at the economic and political levels, such as a lack of enough decent paying jobs to support a family. So consequently, the overall conclusion is that for the vast majority of the poor, impoverishment cannot be justified in terms of prior negative actions. And I haven't talked at all about the other side of the issue, which is that for those on the economic high end of the scale, the notion of justice is also severely distorted. For example, to what extent is the great wealth of those on the high end deserved and in balance with prior actions? Now, that discussion could certainly be for another Sunday platform at the Ethical Society, so I will leave it for another time to go into that. Overall, then, just to wrap up my comments, I think that a very strong argument can be made that large amounts of economic inequality and poverty have a distorting and undermining effect on the American sense of justice. That these conditions do indeed undercut our country's overall notion of fairness and justice. They erode the idea that all citizens should have full access and entitlement to certain rights. They damage the principle of equality of opportunity, and they result in conditions that are neither deserved nor in balance with prior actions. And I would argue then that in order for America to live up to its own standard of justice, alleviating the conditions of poverty and economic inequality should be a top priority as we move forward in the coming years. So thanks much for listening, and I'll be happy to stick around a little bit afterwards and take any questions that you have. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. That feels really, really relevant when you consider what's happening in the government right now. The Welcome team will now take up a collection to support the Society. We rely on the generosity of members and friends, so please consider donating. If you don't have cash with you today, you can donate at ethicalstl.org/donate or use the QR code on the screen. We appreciate anything that you may be able to offer. If you are interested in joining the Ethical Society or you are a visitor and would like to know more, please visit the Visitors Connect table in the Becker Room after platform. Please join us at next week's 9:45 forum. The platform speakers team will facilitate a discussion about the programming and speakers you would like to see in the coming year. What's important to you? What ideas do you have? How do you feel about what we've been doing? What should change? Discussion will be accompanied with a written survey. Your input is important because what we learn at the forum will help shape the programming for the coming year. Okay, Dan said there'd be nothing about the stewardship and pledge campaign, but that's not true because I'm going to share it with you right now. By now, you should have received a pledge packet in the mail. If you have not received it, in a few more days, please let Dan Overman know at dro.mdv@gmail.com. The pledge applies to the 2025-2026 fiscal year that begins on June 1 and ends on May 31st, 2026. If you wish to pledge today to avoid having to mail your pledge, There will be a drop box at the table located in the corridor just outside the entrance to the kitchen. Look for the sign above the table. If you would like to submit your pledge today, but you left your pledge form at home, don't worry. We've got blank forms available at that same table. For those who prefer to submit online, the annual commitment pledge form is available on the website. Please consider submitting your pledge by April 13th. In addition, please join us today after this meeting for a complimentary luncheon. Today's menu is a repeat of last year's: pizza, salad, and cookies or an apple, along with mountains and mountains of goodwill. I truly hope that you can make time to attend today's complimentary lunch, to thank members and friends for their generosity, and to celebrate our community. This includes a special invitation to visitors as well. With appreciation from your Stewardship Pledge Task Force, Matthew Heil, Marianne Perkins, Claude Bernard, and Dan Overman. We would love to keep you informed about future events at the Ethical Society of St. Louis. You may use the QR code to sign up for the weekly newsletter, check the Friends of the Ethical Society Facebook page, or email the relevant staff person or member. This is a busy and vibrant place that relies on volunteers, and I hope that you get involved and connected in ways that are meaningful for you. Let's welcome King Q back to the stage for his final selection, Holy.
So, hey, Bear, remember when earlier I was like, I was super nervous earlier about this song? I figured it out. I'm going to do an acapella. I said, first things first, let me start off with the basics. A lot of us can make it, but can't balance it with greatness. Born after the distribution of Apple computers and right on my mama's table was a 97-pager. Lived my whole life stuck in 2 generations is crazy and hard to find people I relate with. Cost to be the boss, start depositing my paycheck, but if the money talk, let me spark the conversation. Consider that the language, but the motivation is to speak the truth even if you risk your reputation. Better bend the rules like the measurements are flexible and fix the fucking game like you playing for the Patriots. Giving y'all my all like my life depended on it. Around sundown is when I'm really mourning. Chip off the block, man, I keep it on my shoulder. Keep this shit on lock, it's the key to moving forward. Hoping for a breakthrough, nobody can save you. Stay the same for others, man, that type of shit'll change you. Guess it's fuck the world, let me slide to second base, and by the time this track is done, let me label it as Babe Ruth. I do it for my day ones, but now I'm on the day 2. By day 3, they probably gonna start to hate you. It really be the ones you've been rocking with since grade school. It really be the ones that be telling you to stay true. But these snakes have never crossed me like a hospital logo. Silver with the grenadine to make me move in slow-mo. Look right through my lens, you can see the bigger picture, get the image on a spot like a Polaroid photo. This really ain't rap, it's really an act. They piggybacking off of your name and they pity that fact. Forgot who really running this game, start clearing your mind and get your fucking memory back. We been in our bag on G.O.D. Old friends slowly turn enemies. Try to get the dirt up off my name before they mention me. Running from the hate, I can't never let it get to me. Squares in my circle, let me check the proximity, it's killing me. But I remember thinking back on how to make this happen just to show the world the value ain't dependent on your status. I remember thinking back on how to make it rapping, but the money and the fame will never bring me satisfaction. King Q, thank y'all so much.
Thank you, King Q. I hope you're not leaving officially because I still have your sunglasses. Thank you all for being here today, for each other and for yourselves. I hope today's platform helped you feel more connected to one another and motivated you to get involved in the community and causes that you are passionate about. I also welcome you to spend more time in community today There is coffee and a complimentary lunch downstairs in the Becker Room. If you don't know how to get to the Becker Room, you can follow the crowd out this way. We have stairs and elevators. Have a great rest of your day and a wonderful week ahead. And please, let's have some fun time in community today.
It's certain shit you should never say when you like that. Certain games you should never play when you like that. I can never tell if we the same. Are we still the same? Are we still the same? It's certain shit you should never say when you like that. Certain games you should never play when you like that. I can never tell if we the same. Are we still the same? Are we still the same? Tell me that I'm losing it, tell me that I'm losing it, tell me that I'm losing it. Tell me that I'm losing it, tell me that